What if the next move in the Middle East doesn't start with a missile, but with a message? Tonight, a powerful voice in conservative media is calling the recent strikes on Iran a righteous mission, framing them not as escalation, but as moral necessity. Are we witnessing the restoration of deterrence or the opening chapter of a far more dangerous confrontation? Stay with us, because what happens next could reshape U.S. foreign policy and the balance of power in the Middle East overnight. Welcome to USA Latest Update, your trusted source for breaking political news, powerful analysis, and the stories shaping America's future. From Capitol Hill decisions to major global developments, we bring you the facts, the context, and the impact, all in one place. If you want real updates without the noise, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's big story. Levin, known for his forceful defense of national security hawkishness and strong support for former President Donald Trump, did not mince words. In his view, the strikes were not reckless, not provocative, and certainly not optional. Instead, he described them as a long, overdue response to years of Iranian aggression, proxy warfare, and nuclear brinkmanship. According to Levin, allowing Tehran to continue expanding its regional influence without consequences would send a dangerous signal not only to Iran, but also to adversaries like China and Russia, who are watching closely. The backdrop to this controversy is the long-running standoff between the United States and Iran over Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Since the collapse of the nuclear agreement and the reimposition of sanctions, tensions have simmered. Military posturing in the Gulf, proxy attacks in Iraq and Syria, and threats against Israel have all contributed to a volatile environment. Recent strikes, reportedly targeting facilities tied to Iranian-backed groups, have reignited concerns about whether the region is edging closer to a broader confrontation. Levin's argument rests on a simple but powerful premise. Deterrence only works if it is credible. He contends that Iran has tested American resolve for years through proxy militias and indirect attacks. Without decisive action, he argues, Tehran would interpret restraint as weakness. By calling the operation a righteous mission, Levin is invoking not just strategy, but morality. In his framing, the strikes were defensive, protective, and aimed at preventing a larger war rather than provoking one. Critics, however, see the situation differently. Some lawmakers warn that even limited strikes could spiral into a wider regional conflict. They argue that without a clear congressional authorization or a long-term strategy, the United States risks becoming entangled in yet another prolonged Middle Eastern confrontation. Energy analysts are also watching closely. Any sustained escalation with Iran has the potential to disrupt oil shipping routes in the Strait of Hormuz, sending global markets into turmoil. Supporters of the action counter that failing to respond would embolden Iran's leadership. They point to Tehran's support for armed groups across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, arguing that a firm response is necessary to restore deterrence. In this view, the operation sends a clear message. Attacks on U.S. interests or allies will carry consequences. Levin also tied his defense of the strikes to broader questions of leadership. He praised what he described as a posture of strength and clarity, suggesting that strong responses prevent larger conflicts down the road. The underlying message is that projecting power, rather than avoiding confrontation at all costs, ultimately reduces the likelihood of war. Meanwhile, international reactions remain mixed. European allies are urging restraint while emphasizing the importance of diplomacy. Gulf states are cautiously supportive of efforts to counter Iranian influence, but wary of becoming battlegrounds in a direct U.S.-Iran clash. Israel, which has long viewed Iran's nuclear ambitions as an existential threat, has consistently advocated for a tougher stance. The stakes are undeniably high. A miscalculation by either side could trigger retaliation, cyber attacks, or proxy strikes that expand the conflict. Yet doing nothing also carries risks. This is the tightrope policymakers are now walking, balancing deterrence with de-escalation, strength with restraint. What makes Levin's comments so impactful is not just their tone, but their timing. Public opinion on foreign interventions has shifted dramatically over the past 2 decades. Many Americans are weary of overseas entanglements. However, there remains strong bipartisan concern about nuclear proliferation and terrorism. By framing the strikes as morally justified and strategically essential, Levin is tapping into that lingering anxiety about global threats. The coming days will be critical. Will Iran respond directly, or will it rely on proxies? Will diplomatic backchannels quiet tensions, or will rhetoric on both sides intensify? Markets, military planners, and political leaders are all bracing for what comes next. One thing is certain: the debate over America's posture toward Iran is far from settled. The words righteous mission are powerful and polarizing. For supporters, they signal moral clarity and resolve. For critics, they risk oversimplifying a deeply complex geopolitical struggle. As the story unfolds, the world will be watching closely to see whether this moment marks a turning point toward renewed deterrence, or the beginning of a more dangerous chapter in the Middle East. Stay tuned, because this situation is evolving rapidly, and the decisions made now could shape regional stability, global markets, and U.S. foreign policy for years to come. Thank you for watching USA Latest Update. If you found this report informative and valuable, make sure to hit that like button, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to USA Latest Update for the latest political news and breaking updates from across America. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an important story. Stay informed, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next update.